Tonight, we're joined by a journalist who has experienced injustice at the hands of the Iranian regime personally. Jason Rezaian was the Washington Post's Tehran bureau chief in 2014 when he was wrongfully detained. He was held for 544 days in Iran's most notorious prison, where he was interrogated and subjected to psychological torture. These images show him after release as part of a prisoner swap in 2016. Jason joins us tonight now. And Jason, you're a friend of Top Story, so we thank you for having you on tonight. You obviously had a very difficult time there. How are you dealing with sort of what's happened now, knowing that the Ayatollah is dead?
Tom, first of all, I'm thinking a lot about the political prisoners and hostages who remain in the very same prison where I was being held, and prisons all throughout Iran. I think that's a humanitarian catastrophe that no one is talking about, but is on the verge of happening, if it's not happening it already. 6 Americans being held at the moment. So as much as I understood and understand the elation and celebratory response to the killing of Ali Khamenei, it's not the end of the story by any means. The system is still intact, obviously weakened, but it appears that this is going to be a long road for Iranians.
Yeah, I know you think it's a long road ahead. Do you have a sense, I know they've already established sort of a leadership council, do you think there's any change in Iran?
Look, I think change is coming, but not coming from the system by choice, right? Their defense capabilities have been decimated, air defenses non-existent. Clearly, the Mossad and the United States have been able to infiltrate Iran and take out its top leadership. But this is a system that's very entrenched and has been ruling this country ruthlessly with an iron fist. And just because of that symbolic leader, the face of this, the main repressor in many ways is no longer there. Those systems of repression are still there. But if Iran wants to be a society that grows, that takes advantage of its incredible history, its people, it's going to have to open up, and it's either going to do so willingly or apparently by force. But unfortunately, I don't think that there's a good example of a regime changing its behavior from aerial bombardments.
Yeah, no, I agree on that. But then how does change come, right, Jason? Because the opposition is completely silenced in Iran. The people are not armed in Iran. So how do they rise up? How do you bring about change?
Well, first and foremost, we have to help them get organized. And as you know, the internet is down. Communications between people inside the country, let alone with the outside world, have been cut off in the last few days, but also during the protests of several weeks ago. So when President Trump, for example, says, you know, we've got your back and it's now time for you to go out and take over, take your country back, with what defenses? You're right to ask that question, Tom. And I think that the opposition, although it's fragmented, although it hasn't been able to organize, although it's sustained so many blows, it's clear that people inside that country want change. So I think, you know, one thing that the United States and our allies should be thinking about is how can we help cultivate that? You know, the first step of military strikes is one piece of the puzzle, but it's certainly not a well-thought-out plan of what comes next. And then, frankly, what role does a foreign power have in deciding that fate for a nation of Iran's size and history and resources?
So that leads us to the next part of this conversation, which is having lived in Iran, having been there, having been imprisoned in Iran, and having covered it as a journalist, why do you think President Trump chose now to take out the Ayatollah?
Frankly, I think that choice was led mostly by Israel. He said it and walked it back. He said it yesterday, but walked it back somewhat today in his press conference.
But do you think? But I mean, Jason, I agree with you there, and I don't mean to cut you off, but you got to think if the president said don't do this, Israel's not going to do it.
Look, I think that they're on the same page, but the reality is that I don't think that Trump really wanted to get into this war. I think he also was probably sold the notion that this is going to be an easy cakewalk, similar to what happened in Venezuela, which, by the way, is not a situation that's completely resolved either. But it's apples and oranges, and this is a very different kind of state, the idea that killing the leader would end it was a fallacy to begin with. I think the intelligence was probably not very solid. At the same time, they had an opportunity, and they took it.
Yeah, you wrote during those anti-regime protests that popped up earlier this year that actually were sparked by economic difficulties in Iran, that you felt hopeful for Iran's future for the first time since your release. Are you feeling that hopeful tonight? I mean, do you feel that there is sort of a change happening across the world right now, and it's going to be now or never for Iran?
I have to be hopeful. At the same time, I have to be honest. And the reality is that I don't think that we've armed the people of Iran. And when I say armed, I don't mean with weapons, but with credible tools to help them combat the repressive system that rules over them. If we were to jump into high gear right now, provide internet access, something that we've promised to Iranians in every instance when they've been cut off the internet over the last 15 years, that this is never going to happen to you again. If we get them back online, help them organize, connect with Iranian dissidents inside the country and those living in exile, and come up with a realistic plan of what a way forward could look like, there's certainly hope. This is an incredible country, a country of history, civilization, given so much to the history of humanity. It's also an incredibly educated population. So yes, I have to be hopeful.
And full of natural resources.
Time, it's not a foregone conclusion.
Just real quick, because
incredible
people,
in natural resources.
Yeah, because people out there are going to want, they should get details. Are you saying access to Starlinks? Are you saying trying to smuggle in Starlinks? And would the people of Iran, a separate question, accept an opposition leadership that was formed and/or a leader that came outside of Iran?
I think there's a lot of people who are asking for that. I don't think that that's the long-term best situation for the Iranian people if they hope for a democratic situation. You've got to do that with civil society building at home. Yes, to the question about Starlink, there is Starlink terminals operating in the country. They have been for the last couple of years. Send in many more of them. There's also something called direct-to-cell access that can be sort of a switch that's almost flipped, but it would require congressional legislation to make that available to Iranian cell providers and cell phone owners. So yeah, there's a lot that we can do, and we should be focusing on that right now, because this is not a situation that's going to end tomorrow, and it's not one that's going to end a week from now. This is ongoing. We're in it now. We're completely invested in it, and we owe it to those people to support them to find a better future.
Jason Rezaian, so great to have you on Top Story. As always, we always appreciate your perspective. Thank you for being here tonight. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.